Welcome to the Scoop with Deuce. I'm your host, Philip Deuce, aka Deuce D Scoop. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram at Deuce D Scoop. And make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. While you're at it, turn the notifications on. If you're watching this on the pregame network, turn the notifications on. Hit the subscribe button. Shout out to Uncle Neely. All right, so listen, all the rage today in Colorado Buff Nation was about the potential of Hall of Fame running back Marshall Faulk joining the staff as running backs coach. While this has not been confirmed by Colorado officially, right now multiple outlets are saying that Marshall Faulk will be or is the leading candidate to be the new running backs coach. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna confirm or deny. I've heard some rumblings as well. What I'm gonna do is talk about the fit of Marshall Faulk in this offense. Now, let's just talk about Marshall Faulk first. When we talk about accolades and someone who's done everything that you can do as a running back in the NFL, he's the guy, arguably the greatest running back of all time, depending on who you ask. Statistically, he's up there. I mean, when you talk about as far as being a complete back, pass protection, running the ball inside, outside, being able to pound it between the tackles, running stretch zone, doesn't matter. He can do it all. Also, another thing that you have to talk about is his prowess with catching the ball out of the backfield. He basically was one of the guys that helped revolutionize the position where you see a lot of third down running backs now, but he was a guy who could do everything on any down. All right, we're just gonna go. Let's. I don't know if you want to start on NFL records or I don't know. Let's you know incredible career at San Diego State. He was a guy who was really good on defense. San Diego State was the first school to offer him as a running back. That's why he ended up there. He had a ton of schools on him, but a lot of people thought that he was going to be a better defender than a running back. He believed in himself. Uh, Marshall Faulk went about 5'10", was a 205-pound guy. Uh, Ran a 4.340, which a lot of people don't realize, but Marshall Faulk was really a burner. All right, so he was second overall pick in 1994. And we just get into some of the accolades. All right, so when we talk about Marshall Faulk, you got to put respect on his name. All right, we're just gonna go down the list. Bear with me. All right, fastest player to gain 16,000 yards from scrimmage. Boom, he did it in 129 games. Fastest player to get to 17,000 yards from scrimmage. Fastest player to gain 1,000 yards from scrimmage. Most 2-point conversions ever. Most consecutive seasons with 2,000 yards from scrimmage. Most consecutive seasons with 5+ rushing touchdowns. 10 seasons with 5 or more rushing touchdowns. Most consecutive games with 4+ touchdowns. 4 touchdowns in back-to-back games, NFL record. The receiving record for a running back, 1,048 yards. Most consecutive games with a reception by a running back. Most games with 200 yards from scrimmage. 14 games with 200 yards from scrimmage. Most games with 250 yards from scrimmage. Most games with both the rushing and receiving touchdown. This man had 15 games, a whole season worth of games where he scored rushing and receiving. The only player with 70 rushing touchdowns and 30 receiving touchdowns. Uh, and it's even more than that. All right. I mean, when you talk about awards, honors, won a Super Bowl, um, most valuable player in 2000, 3-time NFL Offensive Player of the Year, NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, 3-time first team All Pro, 3-time second team All Pro, 7-time Pro Bowler, the uh, the rushing touchdown leader in 2000, 2-time NFL scoring leader, all rookie team. He's in the Ring of Fame for the St. Louis Rams, Ring of Fame for the Indianapolis Colts, number retired with the Rams, and also a Hall of Famer. When you talk about credentials, is there anybody outside of Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith that can even rival this guy? When we talk about someone who's done it at the highest level and did it consistently. Uh, had an injury during his time with the Colts where people thought it may have been over. He was slowing down. They thought he lost a step. Gets traded to the Rams for a second and a fifth round pick, I believe. nothing that was worth what he put up. And then he went on a generational run where he absolutely went crazy. So outside of being able to add to the Hall of Fame um, resume of the coaching staff and the NFL experience that the Colorado Buffs coaching staff already has, he's really a really cerebral guy. He played the running back position from a position of wisdom, knowledge, studying. He knew what to do, when to do it, understood all facets of the offense, especially as much as he caught the ball. He could have been a slot receiver in a pinch. There was so much that Marshall Faulk brought to the game that I think that is going, if he does in fact become the Colorado Buffs next running back coach, you have to be excited about someone who can provide this type of tutelage, especially someone who has consistently done it and did it over the multitude of years. And when you consider what Warren Sapp was able to bring to the table, what a guy like D. Lou was able to bring to the table, Kevin Mathis has brought to the table. Now you're getting another spade, another trump in Marshall Faulk, which I just think if he does become the running back coach, perfect fit. All right, but I'm gonna get into some more schematics now. All right, there's a name that you need to know that is gonna help you understand why Marshall Faulk fits so well with this coaching staff. Not just because his relationship with Coach Prime, not just because of his accolades, but because of the schematic portion of it. Don Coryell, Air Coryell, the legendary Hall of Fame coach from the San Diego Chargers, who helped revolutionize offense. He's a guy that has been credited with basically implementing motion to find out if the defense is in man or zone. Also, a guy who really revolutionized the tight end position with Kellen Winslow Sr., who some people felt like was so athletic. John Gruden has credited Winslow with being the first joker in the NFL, and a joker is someone who, based on his attributes, is a mismatch. You can't play him with the regular card if he does the joker, right? So when you think about everything that Coryell did, you're probably asking, well, what does he have to do with this? So there are basically a few schools of thought when it comes to offense and football, period. And two of those leading schools are Bill Walsh in the West Coast offense and Air Coryell. All right, so the Air Coryell offense. The Air Coryell offense was picked up by a multitude of people, but two of his disciples that are going to help kind of mesh this relationship with the coaching staff, Pat Shermer and Marshall Faulk, would be Norv Turner, esteemed offensive mind, and Mike Martz. All right, so both of these guys are disciples of the Air Coryell offense, and they ran it in different ways. Mike Martz, who's the offensive coordinator for the Rams, later became the head coach. Norv Turner, head coach, used to be the offensive coordinator with the Dallas Cowboys on their first run, then also became the head coach of the Washington Redskins at the time, which is now the Commanders. All right, so why does this matter? All right, so while Norv Turner was the offensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings, his tight ends coach was Pat Shermer. All right, so knowing that how important in the Coryell offense a tight end is, Pat Shermer had a heck of a responsibility. He also helped out then because he was with the Eagles previously. He goes to the Vikings under Turner, and that's when they picked up I believe Sam Darnold. Okay, cool. The offense at the time, and that offense is predicated upon taking shots vertically downfield and exploiting mismatches. A lot of 5 to 7 step drops. All right. Mike Martz, greatest show on turf. That was his offense. The Rams, 99. Marshall Faulk was in that offense. Okay. So when you talk about having familiarity based on schematics, this is where Marshall Faulk fits in because he and Shermer both studied under two of the leading disciples of the Air Coryell offense in Mike Martz and Norv Turner. So all of the terminology, and when you go back and you look at some of Norv Turner's previous interviews where they talk about how having how having familiarity with um the terminology, a lot of the terminology and the schemes in the Air Coryell offense helps you pick up the offense quicker. All right. Also, Marshall Faulk also was coached by Lindy Infante, another great offensive mind who combined some of those Air Coryell offensive principles in his offense. So when he was cutting his teeth in the league, his first few years in the Colts, Lindy Infante got the job. I think after Marshall Broder, if I'm not mistaken. Y'all got to check me on that. So Marshall Faulk has been ingrained in that mindset under in his playing career. He played under multiple offensive minds who taught the Air Coryell offense. One thing about that offense is the running back has to block. So when you talk about someone who's going to have an appreciation for the running backs being able to block, Marshall Faulk is a guy. When you want to take those multiple downfield shots, he's going to be a guy who's going to try to bring that out of the running backs because that's something that was a staple in his game. The Air Coryell offense was also based in creative mismatches with the running back. So, who was probably the biggest mismatch at running back in the history of the NFL when it came to passing the ball? Marshall Faulk. Another guy that, excuse me, another reason why he would be a great fit is because he understands what Pat Shurmur, offensive coordinator Pat Shurmur, wants to do. Also, when Pat Shurmur took over the job after Norv Turner, he kept a lot of those concepts. But what he did in that offense was to make a mesh of the running principles in that offense. And I think that's really I think that's really important because in that 99 offense with Mike Martz, they did the exact same thing. They weren't just a zone scheme. They ran everything. So for somebody that had to be able to understand the offense in its entirety, but also be able to pick up different schemes when it comes to the running game, Marshall Faulk is perfect. This isn't just a fit because of his accolades. He understands at a different level what Pat Shurmur wants to do. You see the tight ends coming in. You see that, and everybody's talking about how the running game will shift this year. And people want to know what's Pat Shurmur want to do. Having a guy like Marshall Faulk, who can not only coach the running backs, but can also add his own personal experience to an offense that he's already very familiar with, can only be good if he's hired officially. When you think about the running schemes in this offense, Pat Shurmur has the ability to run power O. He can run trap. He can pull the tackles. He can run zone. They can even pull the center. And that's really two schools of offense meshed into one. And Marshall Faulk in 99 literally ran all of those. When you go, if there's a Pro Football Focus article from 2010 that basically chronicled the 1999 St. Louis Rams, and you can go back and you can see what run concepts Marshall Faulk was running. He ran them all. So whether it's inside zone, outside zone, running trap, behind a pulling guard, if you're running behind a pulling tackle, if you're running behind a pulling center, if you want to know what your key is, staying close to his hip, running off of his hip, exploding off of the hip, Marshall Faulk is the guy to teach it. This is invaluable for the Buffs because when you have somebody who's done it at a high level, who understands it at a high level, and now even if you go back to Marshall Faulk on NFL Network, he taught it at a high level. Now imagine the same way that we see John Gruden in quarterback school, you're basically getting the same thing with Marshall Faulk. You're creating a running back school for the multitude of running backs that you have in that running back room in Colorado. And when you think about the differences in the running backs, how they all have different styles, whether it's Augusta, whether it's Michael Welch, whether it's Dallin Hayden, whether it's Brandon Hood. I think I'm missing one. Who am I missing? I said Welch. Y'all put in the comments who I'm missing. But that running back room has a multitude of different styles. Now you have a guy who's ran all of those styles, who's a speed guy, who ran between the tackles and could teach each one of these guys. Oh, A speed guy that ran between the tackles that also was a fool with pass protection and was able to catch the ball. You can teach each level of being a running back from experience and being coached by the best and one of the most revolutionary and being well versed in one of the most revolutionary offenses in the history of the game. Now, when you talk about the Air Coryell offense, they say, okay, it may be outdated. So as everything changes, the original gets diluted, but the principles are the same. There are a million different flavors of Kool-Aid, but at the base, water and sugar is what it is. That's the same thing with the Coryell offense. You got a million different variations, but who better than teaching than somebody who's ran multiple variations and someone who can mess with the offensive coordinator who has put his own little flavor on there, who may run a little bit more stretch, who may run a little bit more zone, who can run different man blocking principles, who can run whatever he wants to. But the goal this year is to run the ball, and who better to get Colorado prepared to run the ball than a Hall of Famer who's a plus damn near genius when it comes to the running back position. So shout out to Marshall Faulk. Right now they say he's the leading candidate, this is just proof that if this is the candidate, this is another home run hire by Coach Prime and his staff to get a guy like Marshall Faulk, not just because of the accolades, but because of what he has up here and what he's already done. All right, that's my time for tonight. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Duke'sTheScoop. If you like what I'm bringing to the table, make sure you go check out the lives. Make sure you go check out everything on the page. We'll be bringing more good content, and I'm going to different schools, and we'll be talking NFL as well. Shout out to the fam, live fam. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notifications so when I go live, you don't miss it. Real live football talk. I'm not just talking, I'm doing my research. All right, Duke's D Scoop, and I'm out.